Recording in progress.
Good morning, Karen. All right, good morning and welcome to the August 16th meeting of the El Dorado County Fire Safe Council. Board members, please be sure to connect up with Carrie to sign in so we can ensure we have met the quorum and have tracked your attendance today. So again, to open the meeting, I'd like to have everyone stand and face the flag at the front for the Pledge of Allegiance. It's up front today. Pull the change up. Pledge of allegiance of the United States, which is a nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. All right, so a little logistical challenge for us in the everyone's attention for us in the room today. Obviously it's hot and muggy out today, and of course that's when the air conditioning system here decided to have some issues. So we've been working with Diamond Fire. A portion of the system is working. We're cool on this side of the room, so I don't know about the rest of it. No, I think we'll make it through the meeting. We'll do our best to keep doors closed and keep this closed to keep the sun off. But again, it may be a little less comfortable here in the room than it's been other times. So thanks for your patience. On the agenda, number 4 is approval of the agenda for today's meeting. So looking at the board, I've had a chance to review any comments, questions, or changes on today's agenda. Chris Payne is raising his hand. Thank you.
So I noted that the different format in the agenda today, comparing it to the minutes of our last meeting. So I was just wondering, is this something the executive committee has come up with, and why are some of the reports not listed on the agenda as they were a month ago?
So as I said in the email that went out to all of the board members, that explained it. We did pull a bit of a crazy Ivan, but it's important. We've talked about over time having presentations, and we haven't had any for a number of months now. But the Office of Wildfire Preparedness and the coordination group came to the Fire Safe Council and asked, because we know we have grants and other things coming up, it's a perfect opportunity for that group to come and have some interaction with the Fire Safe Councils. And we really felt that we could dedicate some time early this year to talk about grants, talk about what's happening right now with the various plans going on in the county, and really set up the Fire Safe Councils for success going forward as with potential grant opportunities, and really have a discussion about who should apply, who has capacity, and not do it in a vacuum. Everybody that needs to be engaged is here today to talk about it, and there's nothing preconceived about any of that. This is a great opportunity that we're early in the year to do this, but we don't want to miss opportunities. We want to make sure that we're all doing the best and hitting the right mark. And so rather than have us all go to another stakeholder meeting, we felt let's just bring the meeting to here. And so yes, the executive, hang on, Chris, because you asked the question. I'm going to finish first. No, it's fine. You just keep up. Let me finish the explanation. I don't have to do it later. So the opportunity presented itself. And so with the agenda, we obviously don't want to keep everybody here all day for this discussion. And so we met with all of the executive board and felt for this meeting only, we would defer the partners reports and some of the other project reports and really focus in on this discussion, and then ensure though that we wrap up the day that all the Fire Safe Councils still have an opportunity for that open dialogue and updates that we all do, and you get program reports on chipping and those things. And remember, when this meeting's over, we have an hour break, and then at 12:30 for those interested, there will Mark Egbert and Tamara Johnston will be presenting this afternoon on grants, and it's really like how to put projects together, and really some thoughtful discussion discussion on how to set grant applications for success. So there's a lot going on today. It's a lot about grants, but that's what's reflected in the change in the agenda, and that's what we anticipate doing with that today. So in addition to Chris, any other comments, concerns about today's agenda? Okay, with that, for the board, all those in favor of approving today's agenda signify by saying aye. Okay. Any objections? Okay, agenda approved as presented. Item 5 on the consent agenda are the minutes from the July 19th board meeting, and all the board members had a chance to look at that in their board packet. Any comments, corrections, additions, changes to the minutes that were presented from the board? Okay, hearing and seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes from the July 19th meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Minutes approved as presented. And again, thank you, Carrie, for bringing those forward. Okay, so that brings us into, again, new business, item number 6. And I'll just address both A and B together. Talked a little bit here about A, but B, we've also have a proposed bylaw change. Again, we haven't had a chance to talk about this at previous board meetings. The executive board reviewed this, put a proposal forward truly for discussion today. And again, I'm sure there will be dialogue and discussion. We'd like to have an opportunity to talk through what promulgated this proposal and then see where folks want to go with that. So when we're done with the grant discussion, I'd certainly like to move into a thoughtful discussion on the proposed bylaw change that all the board members should have received in the board packet. So with that, I'll start off with the grant discussion, item A. As I mentioned, we got some opportunities coming up. There's been a lot going on in the county, as we all know, trying to help us better prepare, better organize, better coordinate. A lot of it folks don't see every day, but there's a lot happening. And rather than get into another grant cycle this year, where we literally, as a Fire Safe Council, made a very conscious decision this year to, for the most part, stand down on grant applications while we got our processes organized. We're dealing with lots of invoicing, a lot of administrative work. We've done a lot of work through Paul's leadership on building a grants sort of process. We've got Tamara on board now, getting up to speed from Pat on our grants coordination and processes going forward. And so this year has given us a real good opportunity, I think, to position ourselves going forward. Well, a year's gone by almost now, and the Fire Safe Council, I mean, we're poised now to start seeing, as we, the bigger grants, cycle coming back, the various CAL FIRE grants, the Forest Service community wildfire grants currently on the table. I've received lots of emails and interest, not just from Fire Safe Councils, but it's really working its way through other government and non-government agencies. There's a lot of interest in all of those. So the coordination group, the Wildfire Preparedness and Resilience Coordination Group, met last week, chatted about, okay, we know that all these things are coming up. How do we ensure we're facilitating a good dialogue and discussion about how we can all be successful in getting this work done? And so the group asked if we could have this discussion here at the meeting. Let's just bring it to where the folks that are the critical in this discussion are at, so that we can all collectively come to some decision going forward of how to make all of this work. So I guess with that, there's members of the coordination group here. And I guess I'm going to ask any of them, Sue, Mike Blankenheim, Mark Egbert. We've got several reps from CAL FIRE in addition to Mike, Jeff Hogue, and Megan Sheeline. Thoughts to add to the discussion, things that have been going on. I know we had a meeting just yesterday that Hugh and Janet and I attended, that the county participated or facilitated on planning coordination. So I guess I would maybe ask, but people don't just get to hear Ken Pimlott talk. Maybe if someone else from the group wants to kind of chat about the meeting yesterday and kind of our thoughts on what we want to get out of today's discussion. And we probably need to have whomever come to the podium. We got some concern raised from folks that they couldn't hear or see. So we're trying to facilitate that for the people online. So if folks that are going to be doing making presentations, if they could come to the podium, we have the camera set up there. So. That awkward walk that Sue makes. All right. For those online, Sue Henneke is making her way to the podium. We'll just hold it for down a little longer. There you go.
For Sue Henneke with the Chief Administrative Office and the OWOPR. So first, I just want to say appreciate the turnout and the engagement today because as you all know, this is a discussion we've been having for a while now, and appreciate your patience with us getting this office set up and all your support. Because the ultimate goal, like Ken said, is to improve that coordination and that collaboration. And a lot of that is going to revolve around, you know, how we get these projects done in the county and in the most efficient and the way that makes the most sense, where we've got the experts engaged at the right level, doing the right types of projects. And then, you know, we bring that down to the community level and find where the community is best positioned to engage in their own projects within their own community. Because I do find that, especially when we're talking about roadside clearing and defensible space and those types of things, really it's the community involvement that's going to make those projects successful and where we need to be there. So we had a great meeting yesterday. We've come to you, I think, each month and giving you an update. We talked a lot about our plans and how we're coordinating. And so yesterday, the discussion was about the many different plans in our county that either deal primarily with wildfire and preparedness and resilience, or at least peripherally. So we've got our general plan safety element. We've got our sheriff office takes the lead on our local hazard mitigation plan. We've got, of course, the community wildfire protection plans and here on the West Slope and Lynn in the Basin. And then we've got CAL FIRE unit plan, and then the Forest Service has, you know, does planning at many different levels. And we talk a lot about how do we bring all those things together and make sure that we're not in conflict with each other, that especially when it comes to getting projects done on the ground, that everything that we're planning and looking at makes. So it was a great meeting yesterday. The Tahoe Basin is working on updating their CWPP. And as we let you know, that's one of our goals for our office this year is to update the West Slope CWPP. We will be embarking on that project shortly. And of course, you're going to be with us, you know, pretty much every step of the way, because that's how to be a process that's very inclusive of not only you and all the different communities in the county, but you know, all our partner agencies, experts in the area. So but it basically, I mean, it was a great meeting. Strangely, I think one of the hallmarks of a great meeting is how short you can make it.
It's a fact.
On the same page, and because we all have been meeting regularly and talking about all of this, it was pretty easy for us to all sit together and talk about these various plans and our schedules for them and how we're going to continue to kind of to stay engaged as we move through that process. I'm gonna probably put Jeff Hogue on the spot and or Mike to talk about the CAL FIRE unit plan, because we got some pretty exciting updates from them yesterday on what that's gonna look like coming forward. So again, just, you know, appreciate your patience with us in getting this set up, all your support. Stay with us, because I think we're going to do a lot of really great things in the coming years, and I'm really looking forward to getting the CWPP process kicked off and having that be, again, just really integrated with these other plans. Well, obviously to the extent that it makes the safety element, and looking at other hazards besides wildfire, and so is the sheriff's office. But we have an opportunity where they really are looking to the OWOPR, the coordination group, and all of you to inform, you know, when they're talking about wildfire in those plans. And so just really optimistic about everything we have to learn us.
Thank you, Sue.
Good morning, Jeff Pope with Cal Fire Amgar Eldorado. I oversee our basically a strategic planning document that we use for identifying areas where we're going to be doing fuel reductions, where we identify some tactical, strategical places where we can make improvements so our folks can go in and fight fires or whatever we have. Traditionally, this document has been just revised year after year after year. And our plan this year is to do a complete revamp on it and use it more as a planning document and get away a little bit from where the historical piece of it has been. And so fortunately, we have been doing this coordination thing with OWOPR and all the other agencies. The timing is perfect. We have up to 2 CWPPs being updated in the county, the safety element. The unifier plan, it's updated annually and internally. And then we also have the LHNP suit referred to earlier. So with having this opportunity where they're all kind of coming out sometime in the next spring, this gives us the chance to give that type of leadership. So where Cal Fire things where we need is going to be most appropriate for these projects to go. And then that'll also help with as those groups come out with where grants need to be. So like she said, a lot of the grassroots stuff for defensible space and improving on roadside clearances, that's where we need those grants to go for be identified at the community-based level. And then what we'd like to do is have Cal Fire is going to identify some of those larger projects that then we can add on to and coordinate with the other groups. So it'll make a lot more sense as we're doing it instead of rather having this piecemeal all over the county. It'll be more cohesive. I think we're going to have a great product by the time we get to the end of it, but it's a work in progress. Any questions?
So I do have a question, in addition to what comes in the room from online from Lester, and we could certainly defer to Jason at BLM as well. But can Jeff speak regarding the recent agreement with BLM regarding Good Neighbor Authority and projects associated with that agreement? So Jason, anything on? That's okay. Lester's asking about a Good Neighbor Authority agreement between with BLM. I assume that he's meaning with Cal Fire, but I'm not sure. We're getting a microphone back so we can hear Jason. And
that's a requirement.
And we'll follow up on that.
Yeah, so
Perfect.
there'll continue to be coordination between ourselves, our agencies.
Okay. Thank you.
That is the goal. The overall goal is to have everybody at the table as we're making these decisions.
Megan.
It's about the GNA. I think that is going to be part of the implementation phase. So once we decide where the strategic projects should be located, then we'll explore opportunities like working with our partners in the implementation phase and maybe enact the Good Neighbor Authority for that phase after the planning.
Okay, thank you. Ernie, you have a question.
This may not be a perfect question, but I'll ask it anyway.
Of course you will. Fire away, Ernie.
The mapping tool that is the big broad picture of putting various layers of information. I did not look at it directly, but somebody else did. And their concern was that the mapping tools, one of the layers should be the burn scars. I'm from the Grizzly Flat area, and with the current way the mapping tool is set up, it doesn't show the thousands of acres that were burned, and that would be a definite influence on future planning as well as any tabletop exercises. So if it's appropriate, could somebody?
Yeah, fire history is always something we consider when we're going through our planning process. And I think you're referring to the OWOPR mapping.
Sorry.
No, it's a good, and just to answer that, Ernie, yeah, for folks that saw it, the county's been working for quite some time now with the water agency to put phase 1 of a mapping application out, and they've done that. And of course, yeah, it's never, hey, thumbs up, great job. It's always what's wrong with it. And so that's what we're working through right now. What I would encourage folks to do is that on the map itself is an area where you can provide feedback. And I think those are very valuable things that, folks need to hear going forward so that the GIS program is going to continue as the email had indicated, they're going to continue to upgrade the product. And this was the first opportunity to get something out there to try to start getting folks working with it. And so, yes, please encourage folks to use it, find out what new tools and opportunities would be beneficial. And again, the comments, when you click the box, they go right into the El Dorado County GIS program. And so the GIS program meets with OWOPR and others regularly to look at all of that and to continue to make those upgrades. So looking forward to that. And then phase 2 that they're beginning to work on now is the broader data hub data management. They've already been reaching out to the Forest Service and CAL FIRE and the RCD and others to start looking at that data management and governance to get more data available, not only to the public data layers, but also internally to the partners. So as project planning and development is going on, that more that's there, the better. We've already had SMUD and others reach out saying, hey, we've got data, we're ready to put it in. I see we've got a question from Chris first, and then we'll go back to Elizabeth.
Related to the topic that we're under, our last meeting, it was a very thorough discussion, now a continuation of that, which is what is a grant? And either my words, not necessarily others, what does a grant look like? And what's going to make it successful as we go through the grant application process? So having been here a long time, as well as some others here, I realized that the project, just in terms of what it might be, has gotten bigger, larger. There's more complexity because we might have multiple associate fire safety councils that all come together in order to get a successful grant. That means, though, if you look at it from the other context, there is a project that may be too small, that somebody may be seriously pursuing in their mind, that they shouldn't be wasting their time because the evolution of grants and grantsmanship has changed. Ken, do you understand that?
I do, and I think it's a perfect opportunity when we'll be listening to Mark's presentation this morning as this group will touch on some of that as it relates to the CAL FIRE grants that are available and obviously a discussion with the Forest Service. But even better yet, this afternoon, Mark and Tamara at 12:30 will be talking about building grants. It's very specific to some themes, but I think all of that's part of that discussion. So I would defer folks to listen to the presentation today and this afternoon, and then we can talk more about that because I think that'll get answered. No, I think it's a valid point, but I think we've got some good presentations that hopefully will answer those questions for folks.
Yeah, feasibility of project, they're all created. It depends on what your overall goal is. And does that align with, again, what we're all trying to accomplish here? Okay, sometimes, yes, the project may, though it's very important to a specific group, it may not work into the overall plan. But again, we're trying to do the greatest good for the greatest amount of people.
And there's so many people here that are newcomers that they have no clue as to how it's all involved.
For sure.
And you're gonna.
And the grant process can be confusing, especially if you're new.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions looking online? Well, just to reiterate, oh, well, Elizabeth, sorry, go ahead.
I want to say yes and no. That's not going to be a driving grade here. It's definitely a consideration. If there's a good grassroots effort to do a specific plan and there's a lot of things in place and it makes sense, then that could be a tiebreaker and a consideration, but it's not what drives our policy on it.
But maybe to help with that, Elizabeth, this is kind of reiterating what Sue said and what Jeff has said. We're in a unique opportunity right now that I don't know that we've ever been in, where there's 5 plans that are relevant to the space we're working in that are being updated in various stages of being updated right now. It's the Community Wildfire Protection Plan for the Tahoe Basin. It's the Local Hazard Mitigation Plan that Sheriff's OES is responsible for. It's the CAL FIRE Unit Fire Plan. And I will tell you, never before has CAL, I'm saying this because I was one of them. It's never really come to a meeting, and said, hey, we want to do this a different way. They have a requirement to meet an obligation to where, to that. But at the end of the day, they've said, no, we don't want to do it the same old way. We recognize this spirit of collaboration. We have the county literally preparing to go out for an RFP to update, provide a comprehensive Western Slope CWPP. And then we have, of course, the safety element that the county has already been engaging on for the last year. So to kind of tie that together, the CWPP for the West Slope is going to really be the driving opportunity for all of us from the bottom up to influence this. And when Sue talks about this really good meeting yesterday, Jeff and the leadership team from CAL FIRE was all there saying, yeah, we're going to listen to all these things coming out in this process to make sure what we're putting into our plan makes sense. But conversely, here's what's more important. And I definitely want to hear CAL FIRE say this again. They are the leaders when we're talking state responsibility, or the wildlands where we're doing our work, the private lands, they're the fire professionals that understand. They know where they're going to make tactical and strategic decisions on fighting fires, where they're going to go to help protect communities. So we need to be listening to them. What's important to you? We don't want to just come up with something in our CWPP as hey, we have a great idea for a fuel break in our community. We really need to be listening to them and our fire districts. Okay, what would you use? And build our processes around that expertise. And that's what this crosswalk between these plans is going to drive. And it's not going to be after the fact. No, we're not all completely lined up timing wise, but we are in a great window to get that done. And so, yes, they've got a time frame. They've got to get there. They've got mandates to get the fire plan to Sacramento and approved by the Board of Forestry and all of that. But we've got a window right now where they're willing to sit down and cross-pollinate this with these other efforts. And that's something we've never had a chance to do before. So Tamara, and then we'll go to Dave.
Yes, I mean, we're always in collaboration with them for either development planning or those types of things, but as far as like these bigger projects, those types of things, we do have those relationships. We haven't discussed that as being part of the criteria we're going to look at when we're updating our plan, but I could see that as being part of it. Yeah.
Can I speak to that real quick?
Go ahead.
Hey, Mike, can you just, I want to make sure everybody hears that. So it's our exercise program today.
Yeah, so I think that was a great question on input into the CAL FIRE unit fire plan. Excuse me, who are you? Mike, can I mute you for the Amarillo Dorado unit?
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So when this whole conversation started about maybe reworking the fire plan and collaborating with the CWPP and all these other things, I think it was pretty widely recognized. I don't think anybody disputed this, that there had to be grassroots, community, local input into this plan as it gets generated. That's what's going to drive the plan forward in a meaningful way. Meaning the projects are going to be meaningful to the communities and some of those kind of things. Spot on with that. CAL FIRE has the obligation and responsibility to put out the fire plan. And it does need to be, I think anyway, operationally driven. Where do we want to put fuel reduction projects, fire breaks, all those kind of things that we know that we can use to tactically defend communities, infrastructure, natural resources, and all of those kind of things. So whether the projects are 500 acres or 10,000 acres, we want to be able to talk about all of them. So the input into the fire plan, we kind of touched on a couple little avenues for that right now. It is through the local fire safe councils and the local fire districts, but they're not all going to have a seat at the table when we write the plan. What we've directed our battalion chiefs to do, our battalion chiefs are that conduit between unit management, unit administration, the fire plan, and all that kind of thing, and the locally driven operations. So our direction to them was to be engaged with local fire district, the local fire chiefs, the local fire safe councils, be collecting their input, their ideas, their thoughts, and share our thoughts and ideas and inputs back with them. So that discussion is happening at that level. So there is a conduit to get some of that grassroots, community level kind of piece of this into the fire plan, but it may not be as a direct seat at the table when we're writing the plan. But our guys should be reaching out to local fire districts, local fire state council, and those things to collect that community input, local driven piece into our fire plan.
I think David had a question first. Hey, Chris, I think David had his hand up for the next question. No, he's not going to sit down. David can go first. David had his hand up first. Thank you.
These are charts. I guess historically, the city of Plato was a black hole in the middle of the CWCP, and miraculously that black hole got filled. So will the incorporated areas like South Lake Tahoe and the city of Plato be also part of this process?
It's a good question. Do you have anything technical on that? Let me know. But the way I think that's going to work, though, is those two areas are the only two pieces of LRA in the county where we don't have authority or jurisdiction or any of those kind of things on it. But we've recognized over the last whole bunch of years that what happens in the LRA doesn't just stay in the LRA. What happens in the SRA doesn't just stay in the SRA. There's a mutual impact on those two things. So I don't know that we'll be able to speak to projects directly in the LRA and the city limits there, but we can certainly speak to and talk about and coordinate with all those kind of things. Projects around the periphery that are going to defend both LRA and SRA. So there is a component of that in there. So I don't know if that answers it, Jeff.
Yeah, that does. And the only other piece of LRA that we push into is when we do update our hazard severity zone maps, and we're going to be doing that update coming this fall. So.
And remember, the Community Wildfire Protection Plan will be covering all of those, whether it's the city of Placerville. The Tahoe Basin Plan covers the city of South Lake Tahoe. So the city areas will be covered and inclusive as part of the CWPP. And the CWP process will be engaging what they're doing. And so I think that really the take home message here is the public process is, and I got you to say we have to trust the system on this, but the public process is the CWP that's coming up. And I can't stress that enough, that we have to drive that as the fire safe councils from the bottom up. And that's what the scope of work is indicating. That's going to be going out to select the right contractor to get this work done. It starts from the bottom up, but to be honest with you, it isn't just going to be the fire safe councils. We have lots of areas in the west slope of the county that don't have a fire safe council. We have firewise communities. We have areas, like you said, we have black holes that there's nothing. So at the end of the day, this is a plan that's going to be inclusive of all of that, so that we have a discussion. We are able to be recognizing all of the hazard and risk associated with Western El Dorado County, not just the areas where we know we've got people active.
That was a reassuring answer. Thank you, Sam.
All right, Chris, and then we have Sue coming back up.
Last weekend was the House Natural Resources hearing in Yosemite. So I'm a planning commissioner for District 2. That's George Turnbull's district. So Grizzly Flats is our area. So when you were speaking, I was thinking about boundaries, whether or not we are getting rid of those boundaries. And what I'm talking about is forest land boundaries, federal, state, all of the Bureau of Land Management, Bureau of Reclamation, all of the boundaries seem to be a problem for good management. So can you speak to those boundaries, or do you think there is any boundaries? Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I don't think you're wrong. There are clearly jurisdictional and administrative boundaries out there between state, local, and federal, and so even between the different federal agencies and that sort of, and state agencies as well. Operationally, like when it comes time to suppress the fires, I think over the last bunch of years, we've done a fairly decent job on getting rid of those boundaries with closest resource response concept, all those kind of things. Operationally, I think we've addressed those boundaries about an efficient way as you possibly can. Is it perfect? Not by a long shot, but we're recognizing that.
Okay.
On the other side of things, on the administrative side of things, on fuel reduction projects and all of those kind of things, the conversations are happening. I don't know that we're as far along operationally as we are on that side of things, but things are working in that direction and have for quite a while. We've referenced a good neighbor authority agreement. We've had one in place here on Highway 50 since 2014 or something along those lines. We're talking about another one now. So we are working on those things to tighten those things up. The fact that all these agencies now sit at the table with the OWAPR group. We now have the leadership from all those agencies in a room together a couple times a month talking about connecting projects and some of those kind of things. We may not be able to work on each other's land, but we can certainly like in the SRA, LRAPs, we can talk about where we're gonna touch with these projects, so the communication is happening.
Yeah, go ahead, Megan.
In terms of the unit fire plan, we at CAL FIRE, we're mandated to protect state responsibility area. And so that's where we can identify projects and plan them and intend to put them for the future, where we're gonna make a stand during wildfires. But just to bring it back, that's kind of the point of this whole meeting that we're talking about that we had yesterday, is even though we have all these separate plans, is trying to kind of align them all. And so we're not going to put federal projects in our plan, but we're going to make sure that our projects align with the county COG, other federal projects, and that's how we're trying to bring them.
Sue.
I actually just wanted to go back to the question of the local fire districts and just remind everyone again, we do have a representative of local fire districts that sits on the coordination group. And so they were at the meeting yesterday as well. They are included in kind of, we started with this idea, we might have a working group or a subcommittee on this plan integration piece. And what we discovered yesterday was we're just gonna fold in those updates at our coordination group meeting. So the fire chiefs will be there all the way. We did recognize when we were talking about the CWPP, that is a key group that we need to really step up the engagement with this time around. I know that you all did the very best you could to incorporate them when you did your last round of CWPPs, and I'm sure, it varies by area and with what was going on in that particular district. So we're really hoping, that is one of our big goals, is to improve that engagement of those local districts, because you all can't do it all. You also need your local fire professionals helping you out. And so we've had really good response and really a commitment from the chiefs to really work with the fire prevention officers group and step up their engagement in these bigger, wider planning efforts. So that is in motion.
Thank you, Sue. Hey, I don't see other questions in the room or online. I think unless there's any, go ahead, Elizabeth. And I know if everybody could just make sure the light's on and just speak clearly into the microphone. I know it's been hard for some to hear. Thank you.
Local markets first. Incorporated into the big process when that happens. I just also got it.
Right.
Yes, our energy.
My guidance, and I'll let the team, weigh in. My guidance to everyone is to wait. The goal here, and this is being identified not only in the safety element, but in all of the plans, is to fold the CWP process into, well, it's two. It's the basin and it's the western, the west slope. So I would hold off on those individual efforts. This is the idea. It's going to, the inclusivity is all going to be there. Sand Ridge, Oak Hill, all of that will have its identity in the plan. It's just, it's very difficult to support now so many individual efforts into CWP. We've got to try to get those to boards of supervisors. So our commitment was to have a comprehensive document to take and bring forward, but with all of the information and engagement that we need in that from all of our communities. So short version, hold off. If individual issues come up, if we agree, if we're discussing grants and folks are taking, we can have those discussions between now and the time this plan is done. I think there's opportunity, even without something being in the CWPP, that where if we get, our organizations, our agencies, our professionals to provide that alignment and some documentation, we can probably find some ways to do that. But I would not put any effort into applying for grants or anything to get this smaller projects done. Yes, Mike. And if you could identify yourselves when you're speaking.
Mike Bennett, Fair Place, our City Council Vice Chair. If I could just encapsulate the last 15 minutes of questions and answers, it's really coming down to what's the big picture? You've got a lot of moving pieces. It's almost like trying to do Grand Central Station, from 10 feet instead of 100 feet. You got a lot of trains moving, you got CWPPs happening locally, countywide, you've got OES, you've got OWAPR, you've got Forest Service, you got nationals. It's a lot to actually consume. Yes, you said you had a great meeting yesterday. But it was with how many people? 15 people. And it's great to be able to come here and actually participate and listen, hear that. I'm a visual person. It's almost like if we had a spreadsheet or a per chart that says, here are all the trains moving from the station. And this is where Elizabeth and Sand Ridge plugs in. This is where Oak Hill plugs in. To try to get everything coordinated and on time. Because your unit plan is until next spring. Right, where's the county CWPP? It's kind of visually, how do we encapsulate that so that people can know where to contribute? I fully understand that bottom up is really going to be what in the end makes it successful. But a lot of the people in this room are actually top down too. So we have to meet somewhere in the middle. And I'm just suggesting visually, there's got to be a way to capture it.
Well, the place to start is the wildfire strategy, which we've brought forward to this group multiple times over the last year. Folks have had a chance to participate and comment on it. It's going before the Board of Supervisors on August 29th. That's the roadmap. Although it is at the 50,000 foot level, it addresses all of the things we just talked about, Mike. And I guess that's the point that bear with me if I'm a bit frustrated, but we have been back here. This group has been back here for the last year, giving you all this information, and what folks choose to do with all of that is up to them, but there is a roadmap. The roadmap is the county, collectively, not El Dorado County government, but the county as a whole has recognized going forward, there needs to be a 50,000 foot vision of how we're going to get from A to Z so that we don't have a Caldor fire and start pointing fingers that he didn't do enough, she didn't do enough, that agency didn't participate. We don't know what's going on. So we've been talking from the beginning about starting with a strategy and then trying to plug in the disparate planning efforts. So now we're updating you. We met yesterday. You're getting this raw. We met yesterday, and all the agencies that have responsibility for the 5 plans we talked about, which are the drivers of what goes on in the space we work in, are telling you what's happening right now. There isn't time to put a spreadsheet together. We finished meeting at 4 o'clock yesterday and brought it to the meeting today. You're getting this before anybody. I don't know how to be more upfront and more real time than what we're telling you today. But what's happening is things are changing, things are morphing. We have Sacramento State Fire Marshal's office and other programs embedded in defensible space meetings every other week here. I mean, we are driving programs. We've said this every meeting. We're driving programs, but it is changing almost daily in some cases. I mean, we're trying to keep up with the landscape out there. We're trying to give you the information and inform, but it's everybody, CAL FIRE, reports to their own area of responsibility and authority. So does BLM, so does the Forest Service. Everybody is working to respond to their group, and everybody wants to get involved in the wildfire space. Everybody has grants, everybody has policy, everybody has a strategy. And all we're trying to do is figure out how to gather all of that around, as we've said in the beginning, and as the strategy says, make sure that we're in alignment with state and federal strategies in this space. And then how do we, as a county, as a collective set of organizations, go forward to do our best to be in alignment with all of that, to do it the right way. And then at the same time, being responsive to what the Board of Supervisors asked us to do is to coordinate it better, to not operate in silos. So when we're talking the Forest Service with a $10 million grant, that we're not having a big scrum of a bunch of folks trying to apply for a $10 million grant. Okay, let's talk about it. So you're getting this live. When before have we ever brought this discussion, and we need to get to this discussion here in a minute because both Mark and Jacoby are prepared to talk about the grants that are coming. We're bringing this to you live. We've never sat down with this entire group and said, here's what's on the radar. We want to talk about it. So that's what we're doing today. And yes, we have a strategy. Go read it. The draft is online. It'll be in the Board of Supervisors agenda packet coming up shortly for the August 29th meeting. If you don't like it, if you have concerns, if you like it, show up at the board meeting on the 29th and engage on it. But that's where we'll be. And by the way, there's even stuff in there about the Fire Safe Council and the engagement that's been going on. So I'm going to shut it down there. I want Mark and Jacoby to be able to talk about grants because that's what we kind of block this out for. So Mark, if you're willing to come up, we'll get you your PowerPoint. And I want to thank the coordinating group for coming up.
Excuse me, sir. Point of order.
Yes,
I did have my hand up. You should have acknowledged it. I said, Chris, I don't want to take the question at this point. But there is a point here that you missed, obviously. This gentleman is asking you a question as if the Associate Fire Safe Councils matter anymore. That was my point of asking you earlier when you looked at me as, who's this guy asking? It was the perspective of change has led us to a position. And when we say us, I'm speaking about the El Dorado County Fire Safe. Now you are our leader, but you're taking on so many hats. Sometimes when I hear you speak about us or we, I'm not certain who it is that's speaking to me. Now, is that relevant? I think it is to a lot of associate fire safe councils. I think it's very relevant. But the point of going forward means we know where we are right now, and I'm not sure a majority of people know here where we are right now. I think it is important for the El Dorado County Fire Safe Council to still exist, or I wouldn't be coming to these meetings. I would have been frustrated, but that's me. I think these people who are spending so much time are relevant. I don't think that gentleman that asked you a question was saying that they weren't relevant. He was just trying to figure out within the scheme of things where we exist. And I'm sorry, that was my point of order. Thank you.
thank you.
You're on.
Up here.
Georgetown Provide Resource Conservation Districts. You know, it's a, while Ken is getting that slide, onto the screen, there's a couple of things I just wanted to preface the presentation, I'm using, and with Jacoby is, using some information we received from Shannon Johnson and Julie Howard from the Forest Health Program, as part of our private landowner work group of the Governor's Forest Management Task Force. So I want to say thank you to CAL FIRE for helping with this and invite them to come up and make sure I'm addressing the information. Oh, sure. Thank you. Yeah, you guys, this is like a collaborative thing. So you guys jump in anytime. Give me if I don't see you, just kick me in the rear. And I know about the time, we have not a lot of time, so we'll make it quick. This presentation is available to you, so I would encourage you to read it. Obviously, Tamara is going to be a point of contact for interpretation of all of this information as well. But one of the things I just wanted to say is that, you know, building on our meeting yesterday and looking at all of these plans that we have and learning from the past, is that we know that a plan doesn't really sometimes get the job done. You know, they're effective. They bring consensus and they bring consolidation of strategic, you know, priorities, and it orients people together. But you've got to commit to those plans. And our discussion today was about grants is one way of doing it. And these plans have to have some sort of project. You know, is it an implementation strategy? And so the RCD, we approach these things on 3 different levels. One is on an individual basis, where we go to your property, we develop an individual plan for your property. And on an agricultural basis, right, we know what that means. That landowner is going to implement that plan, to implement actions on the ground, so they have the maximum outputs that they can achieve. And it's usually associated with productivity, right? An agriculturalist isn't going to be successful in implementing a plan that isn't productive. So we take that and then we build community-based plans, and the CWPPs are examples of that. And that has been really a way of building so much consensus and participation. And I don't care whether those plans have really been good or bad or whatever. Look at what they've achieved as far as bringing people to the table and having discussions. And that is a measure of success on its own. But then you take these community-based lands and you build these landscape plans, you know, the county plan. You look at the South Fork American River cohesive strategy, you look at the Upper American River watershed management plan, you look at the basis of our landscape and our watershed. You know, it becomes important to the state of what we do matters to everybody. It deals with air quality, with fires, it deals with reliability of water supplies, and all of those different things that bring and support our local economy with recreation and everything. So we know that the effects of fire are landscape wide, they're huge. So we need individual, community, and landscape plans and the integration with all of those to be able to move forward. And I will tell you, we have had a lot of success in El Dorado County. You know, we have good relationships, we have good partnering agreements, arrangements, we have the ability to come to the table and talk about what's needed to be talked about and realize that we have common goals, common issues, common concerns, but also common solutions. And El Dorado County has done that. We're known for it, you know, so that's what I think is the basis from OWA for success, is that it's got the people in the room who've made that success in the past, capable of doing that as we move forward. And I'll say that every single agency or individual in this room is here to help you. And that's what our commitment is. And I think that's what all the discussion is here about with, you know, going to, you know, we talked about this morning, you know, you always get yelled at by people, and when you go to these fire safety council meetings and you're not doing enough, you're not doing enough. Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? And I just lay back and I say, you know, it's your responsibility, not mine. I'm not asking you to come to my property to help me. It's up to you. If you can't take responsibility on your own, then don't ask the government for a handout, because somebody else would use it as well. So take responsibility, manage your own property, take responsibility as a community and manage your own community, and take responsibility of contributing so that we as land managers on a landscape scale do the best that we can to protect our communities and the other things that are happening. Grants are supplementary to that effort. Asking for a grant to fulfill your individual needs is something you should never have to do or rely on. So grants are supplementary to achieving your goals, but they're not the only tool in the toolbox. There are good neighbor authority agreements, right? There's stewardship agreements. There's direct agreements. We as the RCD have been the beneficiary of a direct agreement that started with, you know, Mr. Finlot giving us a direct agreement to say, get the job done. Don't wait, get it done now. We've had contribution agreements from the Forest Service. We've had collection agreements from the Forest Service where they say, we'll let you do that. That's when you got to pay us for doing that. We have cost share agreements where it says, I'll give you 50% if you put up 50%. We have MOUs, we have JPAs, and then we have grants, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And so what does a grant provide and what is it going to do? And I'm going to focus in on CAL FIRE grants and Forest Service grants. And then we'll have a slide that says that there's other wells out there. The Sierra Nevada Conservancy has brought a lot of funding to the table. And there's other grants. There's other ways of doing it. So one of the things that, and feel free to jump in anytime, is and so I would say that CAL FIRE has a lot of grant programs. And why I'm putting this up there is that we shouldn't always rely on one grant for fuels reduction. You know, there's other things that you can do to build capacity, to build, you know, a strategy to eventually be more resilient, more prepared, and better suited organizationally. And we do that as an organization. We're looking at, you know, all of these different types of grants to say, how do we have workforce development so we can provide cone collection activities, right, Rich, so we can go out and make sure that there's appropriate seed for areas that we need to reforest and grizzly flats. There's all these things that need to happen. And a lot of those things do happen behind the scenes that many people don't even know about. But the most popular grants are the forest health and the wildfire prevention grants. And I think for me, this slide was really good because it gave me a really good understanding of the difference between where a wildfire prevention grant will take place and where a forest health grant can take place. and what type of work that would we do under each of those projects. And the focus of this presentation is going to be like, what do you need to do to apply for a grant? And you don't do that once they push your notice out, right? After you send out a notice saying, hey guys, there's a grant, and all of a sudden you start, you're already too late. And we learned that last year. It will be a lesson learned this year as well. We're not ready. So did you want to talk about
Yeah,
that?
that's it. That's a great slide. I can certainly talk about that if you want. You know, it's on here. We're kind of clean this.
Oh, yeah. And then you can switch.
To the next one.
Oh, is that on, you want that? What do you want?
Oh, so this is the types of project that happens to a reduction grant.
You could.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm pushing the buttons, Megan, so if you just yell and I'll go whichever direction you want.
He's just messing with you every, I keep changing.
Neighborhoods. You can also apply for things like planning. Or encouraging people to do more of the work and you can do a grant application, maybe just for the environmental analysis. And the benefit with that is once you get that completed, then you have these shovel-ready projects that you could apply for a different grant for, or apply in a different round of funding and be more ready to go, which is always very attractive when you're putting in a grant application, is how quickly are we going to get this fuel reduction done? So those are the wildfire prevention grants in a nutshell. And then the forest health grants are more on maybe a watershed as a way to protect the wildlands sort of surrounding those neighborhoods that are out in the wildland urban interface. And so I think those are more encouraged to be larger projects, whereas the wildfire prevention grants are kind of encouraging those to be a little bit more small and focused. And forest health grants program, that's a Sacramento program. So the folks who manage those grants are not actually from our unit. They work at the Sacramento level. But we communicate with them a lot when they receive the applications and when they're getting to know the neighborhoods and the areas so that they can learn and understand the people who do this.
And I'll go to Ken, we go to the slide 5. I put this slide here because the most important thing about this is that CAL FIRE has updated its website, and there's a huge amount of information on the website to describe each grant program, the eligibility requirements for each grant, how much money is available for each grant, when the solicitations are going to be announced, how long you have the grants for, and what the for example, one of the things that I heard from our forest health program staff was that they want a minimum of 800 acres for each grant proposal. So that kind of tells you we're at the landscape level for forest health. Fire prevention, they're very interested in planning CWPPs. They want to help people get there to have a better CWPP. So I think Megan hit a lot of that discussion. And again, one of the things that's really great about CAL FIRE is that on the website, they have, there's a slide number 14. They are open to answering questions. I would consolidate those and go through your grants coordinator so they don't get bombarded, and there's a means to the madness. So I would encourage that. But the CAL FIRE website has been really updated. One of the things that they do is they gave you access to every other single grant proposal that's ever been funded. You can go there, you can read it, you can find out when it was funded, what they did, and learn from those other people's successes. I do that all the time, right? Ever since high school. So
Need to take questions about grants. And if you want to know if your project is gonna be a good application or makes sense for the grant application, we can work with you on that and help you figure out what level of project to ask for. And so we're open to that. So you can call me or Patrick if you have those questions, and we will help on.
Hi there, Rank Dorn. My name is Jacoby Waters. I am one of the deputy chiefs for the El Dorado National Forest. So I was asked to talk a little bit about one of the grants that we have going up is the CW DG, the Community Wildfire Defense Grants. The Forest Service Washington level grant. So I say Washington level because it's at such a high level that I know a little bit about it, but I don't know a whole bunch. So I can guide you into the direction that you need to go to get this, but I can give you a little bit of information on it right now. So this grant is developed for communities that are low income or have been in a major disaster within the last 2 years, or you're in an area where wildfires can happen and destroy your communities. And it's a high area for destruction, right? So those are areas that they're looking for. Those are the ones that they're looking to fund for these grants. And the grants can be anywhere from $250,000 for planning. Planning is huge, right? If you don't plan and you don't line out your stuff. Somebody mentioned earlier today, you know, what would it look like to be successful? To be successful is to plan out your stuff, right? Plan out where you're gonna go, make some maps of it. You know, line out how you plan on spending this grant and where the funds will go. That's gonna look successful moving forward, and that's gonna allow you to spend the funds as they come. But with the federal government, funds don't come right away. You have to apply for it, and you can apply for it now, and it closes October 3rd by 11:59. So just FYI, you're looking at some of that stuff. And then I think the RCD, they're gonna probably talk a little bit more about it because you made these slides and I've never seen the slides. I've done slides, but I can't say that the folks are looking for this. I sent a bunch of information to Ken and you can send it out. You say you sent it out already.
This morning.
Yeah, and if you need more information, reach out to myself and I can make sure that you get the information that you need so far as Tuesday.
So Jacoby, there's a question online in the chat about, could you also speak to the federal small forest landowner program? Are you familiar with that?
I am not familiar with that, so I cannot speak to that. But I can find out about it and I can get back to you.
Thank you. We'll get the information out.
Yeah, I can answer. I'm real good about dodging stuff.
David, okay, we need to make sure we get a microphone and speak into it, please.
So to comment about how much nexus we need with the Forest Service, in other words, when people apply who are not adjacent to Forest Service land?
Yes, you can apply. I mean, what are we talking about adjacent? I mean, because we're all over the place, right? So you could be somewhere adjacent, just communities and needs. I mean, you don't have to be like right next to Forest Service land, but I mean, we're all around. So if you're defending your area and we're meeting somewhere in the middle, we'll kind of be able to work protecting the communities. Right? And so that's the ESPITO.
Okay, so the next might be a big picture, but not exactly adjacent.
Correct.
Thank you. Also, it's.
We'll get Tammy, then I'll get you, Doug.
How many? For instance, El Dorado County Fire Service, this was sponsored for, potentially several projects that would want to submit.
So I would imagine it would be the one fire safety council with all the other projects within it. And so that would be your border, because they would be your sponsors, right? So it's just gonna allow for, like somebody mentioned, I'm gonna try to come back to what you're saying. Somebody mentioned they might have a smaller project. Build that project with a bunch of other projects that you build in more acres, because they're talking large dollars, like $10 million for implementation. You're talking large dollars. So instead of having a whole bunch of little ones, if you go through Fire Safety Council or another entity, you're gonna just put that stuff together and you're just gonna have one instead of like 5, 10, 15, 20 of them.
The maximum would be 10 million then for all the little projects in one.
You know, the Biden infrastructure bill was 200 200 million, and I just read something somewhere like 250 million, so 10 million is what I saw on here, but if the project deserved and needed more, you could apply. I mean, I have to figure out some information, but the last that I heard was 10 million.
Okay, and then one of the things I saw in the webinar was that there's priority to low income underserved
Correct.
communities, and so if you we should set up separate projects or actually separate proposals. Because they'll be scored, if one area meets the criteria, they're gonna be scored higher than another area, so. These are two technical questions that I should ask.
Yeah, I can't get too technical about it because I don't want to tell you wrong, but again, I can dodge for it. But to be, so something that I would be looking for, again, this is way Washington level, so way above my head. I'd be looking for if you had a mixture of low income and then an area that was subject to wildfire, large catastrophic wildfire, and you start putting this stuff together, you're probably gonna fare pretty well when you're doing like a large. Okay, well, I am lost.
I'm just wanting more, yeah, okay.
So, yeah, I'd have to get back to you, man. I have to look at that.
We got a question from Doug in the back, on the side there. They're tricky.
Grants and other federal grants.
So my role is little to none. Again, this is a Washington level grant, so this is gonna go up the chain to the Washington office, regional Washington office, and they will review the grant and we'll go from there. So as far as me helping out building the grant, I guess I can go figure out some information that potentially you might not be able to get and leave it to you. That said, that's the extent of my role in this grant. As far as any other grants that I can think of, they're gonna be not to this level, and it's gonna be something that we would like. We've done some grants for Fire Council in the past, and so it's gonna be more of those type of grants, not to individuals. What is it, the
Stevens Authority.
Stevenson Authority, those kind of grants they've already talked about. We've done those, the CWPP grants, we've done those as well. Those are larger or smaller scale. We can do those, and I can have more input in that stuff when it's local level and not Washington level. Did I answer your question, or did I not?
Chris.
So I just pulled up the website, the federal website, to see what it says that we're in our second round.
Right.
That meant that there was a first round that now we're getting better information, and this goes to the point of what Ken earlier had said, that as information comes in, you're going to disseminate it. But actually, since we're in the second round on this CWPG grant, that must mean then that we're succeeding. So I wanted to leave it, Ken, with a positive.
So that is
Thank you,
good.
Chris.
So I really want to know what actually got granted for the first round and what we're sitting with the second.
That would be helpful, actually, to show everybody what kind of. It would be helpful because that'll show what everybody would need is what kind of grants are being offered or accepted.
Do you want me to discuss it now, or do you want me to just leave it with you?
It's up to Ken.
Yeah, no, I think just to remind everybody, I did, and it was this morning, but everybody on the email list received the PowerPoint that we're going through this morning, as well as a link that was provided by Jacoby to the program. So I think all of the lists of projects, that's all there. I know that the webinars, the last webinar was held yesterday. So, but those webinars are also available as videos online. So if you go to the Forest Service link, the Community Wildfire Defense Grant Program that's in the email I sent, you should get all of that.
And I have the same documentation printed out, and I'll leave it up here. It's got one of each, and folks can look through it and whatever you need. But the rest of the stuff should be on.
Thanks, Jacoby.
Thank you. And so any concluding thoughts from the group? I know. I know we hopscotched through the PowerPoint. You should all have it online, but I think that, you know, in the essence of time, Mark and the group kind of wanted to get to sort of some of the salient points. And I think what's important about the whole discussion is that, one, the community wildfire defense grants on the table right now. I think it's October 30th is the deadline for application. And again, there's a 25, the key takeaways for me, it's a $10 million program. There's a $25 million or 25% match. So that sometimes, you know, that is a different twist that sometimes can be challenging. We also want to we know that typically the CAL FIRE grants, and I know it was on one of the slides, typically those will be coming out sometime late summer, early fall, right? October-ish. Maybe Megan can address that. Perfect. And that's really why we wanted to, oh, yes, go ahead. Just identify who you are and.
Of the Eldorado County Fire Safety. You can't apply for a grant as a fire safety council on our own without going through the Eldorado County Fire Safety process. Is that correct?
Unless you're a council that has 501c3 nonprofit status and can be a fiscal sponsor.
I mean, this is what I'm trying to get my head wrapped around all of this. You talk about applying for grants, it makes it sound like any of us in this room, I know that this gentleman here has a 501c3, it awkwardly still. That we can't just go do that on our own. We have to be in a bigger plan and actually by the result of fire safety councils, that's going to make us a better plan to get it funded, right?
Right.
So,
But nothing precludes any of the councils from doing whatever you want, right? But at the end of the day, I think the spirit of where we're trying to bring everything is the success. And you heard Jacoby say it for the federal grants and CAL FIRE saying it. The success in these is working together for really looking at more holistic projects that cross boundaries that are so that we don't have 30 of us all applying, but that we can all figure out what's best to have the most successful project going forward.
so there's, grants for planning, plans. I'm not a fire person, and what would be the best for our community? So are there smaller grants to help get somebody like Mark or somebody else involved in saying, okay, this is what I think you should do, and these are the fire safety councils that I think you should be in touch with to be able to have a successful grant, and then run it through Eldorado County Fire Safety Council or Tamara or whomever?
Well, first and foremost, you definitely don't need a grant to sit down and have that conversation with any of the councils in the room, with Tamara, with Mark, with CAL FIRE, with Jacoby. I think that's what they're saying is this technical support is all there to work with all of us to determine, okay, what pathway should you go based on your scenario? And it's encouraging us all to talk to each other. So we're doing this coordinated, but two, there's a broad depth of resources in this room and outside of this room, both with council members and with agencies and organizations that can help answer those questions for you. And you don't need a grant to do that. Those are things we can work on just today, and then decide what's the best path forward for you.
Thanks, Mark.
Mark.
I was just gonna say that we're gonna stick around for the grants talks later.
Oh, great. Okay.
No, I think I was just gonna reiterate what Megan said, that what you're talking about is that is exactly, I wanted to introduce the grant programs out there and provide you with information that says you have to be very prepared to apply for a grant now, right? You have to have right entry agreements, you have to have it mapped out, you have to know where your budget boundaries are. You have to have more information than what we traditionally have had to have. And so if, we are preparing, we're helping Community Block Funds right now, prepare for the grant application. We will be talking about how the RCD is going to be able to help the fire safety councils prepare for these grants, that's unfunded work, right? So how do we allocate our resources to get the priorities followed in line with these plans that are being developed? How do we help you guys? And that's what we are going to dive into at the next section.
Well, and just a couple little pieces of the puzzle, and then I'll go to Alice. El Dorado County, the county itself applied for a BLM grant. I was just chatting with Jason this morning and on the status, and we're still pending, but it was a $10 million proposal to look at a significant support for defensible space around the county to help our fire districts participate in doing defensible space. It was also for Firewise coordination and some money coming to Fire Safe Council, particularly for helping and probably councils, multiple, helping with defensible space evaluations and work. So it was kind of a broad brush, but really focusing on defensible space and then doing things in concert with BLM. So our areas that are adjacent to BLM where we can do maintenance on some fuel breaks to get some things back up to speed. All of that was incorporated. So there's a whole nother project that's fitting into these discussions that we're having that we're waiting to see where that goes here in the next couple of months. And then, fresh off the presses is that FEMA and Cal OES/Cal Fire, the Joint Powers Authority through the California Wildfire Mitigation Program, but ultimately FEMA has approved the Weber Creek project, the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant project for El Dorado County. So phase 1 was approved for funding, and that's working on the environmental review piece. And then the other phases in funding will come subsequently, but that's a huge step forward, with the county being one, as we've talked about in the past, one of 6 counties as a pilot program doing defensible space and home hardening in both the city of Placerville and an unincorporated portion just to the south. So again, that's late breaking. There'll be more press information coming here in the coming weeks. But again, that fits into, again, this discussion of a lot of pieces of the puzzle and trying to fit all of those in. And I think it leads to, and I don't want us to get really bogged down in it today, but it really leads to why we thought it was important to talk about all this today. Just in the context of what we're hearing, where do we want to be as fire safe councils? What capacity do we all have? What's important? It's important, I think, for us to be thinking about that. The county, I think, is having the same discussion about, okay, now the county's got potentially 2 grants in the hopper in this space. That's a significant workload. Anyway, thank you to the speakers for coming up. So who's the right applicant or applicants? What are the right projects? We've talked about the CWPP. We're getting into the update phase, but we know that's 12 months out. We've got an existing CWPP that's valid that we can work from. So it's having a discussion about, and we're not going to answer it here today, but I want everybody to be thinking about, we've got to make some decisions about who's applying for what collectively, so that we can all get wherever that lands, our efforts behind that. And I think the Fire Safe Council is well poised to start working on those things. I think there's opportunities from listening to the county, but I don't think anybody, is prepared to take on, a single grant without a discussion about workload sharing and all of that. And, going forward, if the Fire Safe Council, takes on significant more grants, we're going to be coming back and wanting to talk about, managing the billing pieces of it and the bookkeeping, because now we're processing, the work's happening on the grants we're doing now, and that's generating many invoices every month for defensible space, for the other projects. And so it's becoming more of a job to manage just the payment part of our business. And so it's another growth item we're going to have to think about as a council, because I guarantee you we will probably never get another treasurer when Janet leaves, because the workload is just, and she's doing it, it's happening, but I don't think we can expect the kinds of things as we grow. And so it's just things to think about as we're applying for grants and managing all of this, where we'll have to make some decisions as a council and as councils as how to manage all of that. Pat.
And along those lines, and I'm probably jumping ahead into Janet's treasury report, but I'm concerned. We've been very, very successful in applying for grants and receiving grants. We've been to the grant buffet and we build up our plate like you're on a cruise ship. So far, we've only spent about 10% of our total grants that have been allocated to us. And roughly speaking, grants are usually for 5 years. We should be at the 20% mark. So we're falling behind. We've taken all this buffet stuff, but we're not eating it fast enough. And I'm concerned that the failure to execute, or the failure to execute on time, could affect all of us and all of our future grants. So we just really need to pay attention.
Go ahead.
Mark, need to get these done, buddy.
So one of the things that we've really had an opportunity to bring to the table is that when you become aware that you have a grant and then you have a contract and have never had any input on development of that grant, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to make sure you can do it. And I think that's what we're trying to avoid. Also, a lot of times when they get a grant and then you spend a lot of time trying to gain access to the property, you realize, wow, okay, this is a little bit harder. It might take some time to do that. And then the seasonality, with fire season, the red flag days, the operational restrictions that we have to operate. We've been pretty fortunate so far this year, but with winter, red flag days, with nesting bird season, with winter operational strike restrictions, all of a sudden you realize that there's like 5 weeks out of the year you can operate. And so ultimately, some of the things that we're also going to be talking about is roles and responsibilities. It's easy to say, well, get out of our way and let us do our job. But it's also another way of saying, let's go along together on the ride. Let's bring awareness, build advocacy as we go. And deal with, some of the problems that we have. Every single project has problems with landowners filing, threatening to file suits. There's landowners, all kinds of different situations that we have to deal with. So yes, it's easy to look at a timeline and an expendable, account, and then you're going to all of a sudden realize that you went from 10 to 80 real quick, in a short amount of time. So it's just, I think, understanding how you implement the project, and every project's different. And then making sure that your grantor understands your timeline, what you're doing to make sure you have progress. So I think to answer any specific question, you have to look at a specific grant, specific issue. So.
Yeah, go ahead. And I certainly appreciate the comment, Pat, and the thoughts and the response, Mark, and it's definitely well taken. Go ahead, Janet.
So my review from the sideline from the treasurer's spot is that we are starting on a lot of the federal grants to really start moving, and Mark is really sending me invoices on a very frequent and regular basis, and so we're working through that process. But it is, I think, in Mark's defense, really incumbent upon us to be having the conversation with him before we apply for a grant on what it is we want to do and how we want to do it, and whether he has capacity to do that, rather than after we've got the grant, which is why this conversation today is so important, particularly with Mark in the room, that he understands that we're looking at him as the project manager or not, because we do have grants where he's not the project manager, but it's very hard on him for us to get a grant and then plop $4 or $5 million on his doorstep and say, you have 2.5 years to get this done, please proceed, without having the conversation before, and have no environmental review done, have no project planning done. He has no staffing in place to do it because his staff are already committed to other projects. So that's the importance of today's conversation.
Thank you, Mark.
Just very briefly, I apologize, not the opportunity, is that, we have a lot of these grants, we're in motion, things like that, and then Caldor did.
Mhm.
And little do you know, everybody's life changed. And the governor's office has executed an order that says the RCD will take lead on reading responses to Caldor. And we put over 1,000 acres in Grizzly Flats already. And I think sometimes people interpret that as not being good enough. I think that bringing in and having about $39 million in Caldor recovery money, sometimes it took a look, and we weren't prepared. Nobody was prepared. And so, that was, I hope, something that people understand is that, when these things come on, you got to prepare, you got to be able to ramp up, if you will. But Caldor was unexpected. It landed on us. And I think that also contributed to some of the issues that you're referring to as far as the delays.
Great. Thank you, Mark. And I think, go ahead, Alice. Sorry. My apologies.
So, I'm just curious, if there are more things. Maybe address home hardening and education.
I'm looking at the group. Any thoughts to close out? Are folks seeing, maybe that can answer, are they seeing more additional grants coming down the pipeline that might focus on home hardening or those kinds of initiatives or education? Sorry, Megan.
I don't know if CAL FIRE has any home hardening grants through the programs we talked about, but I do know that education is one through wildfire prevention. That's one of the things you can apply for a wildfire prevention grant, specifically just for education. It doesn't mean.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for the group to come talk and kind of tee us up for the discussion. Obviously, a lot more to talk about here. And the commitment is, I think, this afternoon at 12:30 is an important step. So folks that can make that, I think it's going to be a good opportunity to continue some of this discussion, as well as getting into some of the meat of what we're talking about. So we have one more question here. Sorry, we'll get you a microphone. Introduce yourself and.
I'm Julia Patelli, environmental management for North County. And I'm not able to make the grants talk later, so I just wanted to pipe in real quick. And with some of your grants planning, I just want to be able to assist and help with what you're going to do when you do remove your debris. And we partner well with our solid waste hauler, El Dorado Disposal. And so we want to work in partnership with you in finding ways that what to do with all of the areas that you clear and some of your grants and things like that, to provide that back end. What do you do with all the stuff?
We would love to chat with you.
Yeah. Happy to connect and be a partner with you.
Great, thank you.
Julia,
When Julia shares her info, I'll get it out to everybody on the email group. Thank you. Okay, with that, and I know we're at the 11 o'clock hour, and I want to do our best to stay on track, knowing we've got a 12:30. I keep doing that. Sorry, discussion, but item 12B, or excuse me, 6B, I know will be some discussion as well. I want to provide some background, and then certainly other members of the e-board can provide perspective on what they heard, and then I want to have some discussion, of course, before and then see if we're ready to put this to a vote. And this is the bylaw change, and so let me a minute here to bring this up. All right. So the section we're looking at is the oops. That's not good. What happened? Share. Okay. So the section has to do with the bylaws that address associate fire safe councils and it's the definition, et cetera, but specifically page 10, where we talk about conditions of association. And associate fire safe council must meet all the following requirements in order to be considered for approval by the El Dorado County Fire Safe Council. And it was in the board packet, but in a nutshell, what drove the discussion was there has been some concern raised from a number of associate councils and by community members outside of associate councils that they haven't felt there was the ability to participate in some of the meetings. There was sort of a feeling of that there was a closed shop. The meetings weren't noticed or publicized. They weren't here. They knew there was a fire safe council in the area that they're in, but there was no opportunity to come and engage. Elections of officers, those decisions were happening without a real process for invitation. and really the spirit of being able to provide input and engagement in their local council. And so the e-board took a look at this, and again, this is just it's a discussion on the table, the proposal, but looking at what's required of an associate council. If you look at that article, sections A, what's now proposed is A through I, but it's certainly maintaining a governing structure with a minimum of 3 persons. So you've all gone through that every year to provide the list of your officers. But what the B currently says is meet regularly. And meet regularly, period. And so what's the definition of that? What does that mean? And I know there's folks in the room that may have history from when this was first put together that can share, but at the end of the day, that's been a loose definition, and it hasn't provided enough support to require something to get people to be able to participate. And so there was a discussion about what's a minimum, hold a minimum of 4 public meetings annually. So, and there's an opportunity for people to know there's meetings occurring and to participate in that. That's the real substantive change that's proposed, but dropping down to E, sign annually the Associate Fire Safe Association application and agreement. Those things happen concurrently. Karen asked if we could add the application portion to that so that it's clear in the bylaws that we need both. And then H is the maintenance of records, trying to help us out to be a little more specific, which would include meeting agendas and minutes in accordance with the El Dorado County Fire Safe Council records retention policy. So there's a policy that we'll bring back to folks later that needs to be upgraded on records retention. As we're changing to the digital world, we're able to put lots of things on the web or in the cloud. So we're trying to get things upgraded, but we were trying to define what meeting records were for people a little bit more. So and then I, which was important to a lot of us, was provide annual financial statements to the El Dorado County Fire Safe Council if the associate council obtains a fictitious business name and establishes a sub bank account under the El Dorado County Fire Safe Council EIN. And remember that EIN is what identifies the Fire Safe Council through its tax status and as a 501c3 organization. And so obviously it's very important, as ultimately the council is responsible for all of that reporting and what occurs under that number. And so if bank accounts are being opened under that number, though, all of that tax liability and fiscal responsibility, by definition falls under that EIN and the Fire Safe Council. So again, those are the things on the table. I guess I want to throw it back for questions. I know we're just putting this out there for folks, but it's been brought up for a number of months now, particularly the issue in section B concerning what's a public meeting and how often. And I guess, again, my biggest single concern is that we just have a process and a structure that allows for community participation. Because once you're identified as a Fire Safe Council and have a sphere of influence and your boundaries for say are identified on a map, there isn't a second Fire Safe Council that can be approved over that area. We have a process for identifying all of that. So if there are community members that don't feel like there's an opportunity, how do we rectify that? And so we're putting it on the table. I don't know if there's others that want to talk, that have experienced it or concerns about that, or think this is the wrong way to go, but we felt important that we should address this. Chris.
Other than my earlier comment, which I apologize for, I just want to say that this all is on the up and up and very important to us as an individual associate Fire Safe Council. As you know, Firewise status kind of formalizes it, and so by going after that as associate Fire Safe Council and getting it means that you've committed to being there for the community. And I think that's very relevant. I've skirted, I have 900 parcels in the Patterson Ranch Fire Safe Council area. I skirted this issue when it said meet regularly. It forms now a distinct quarterly responsibility, of which obviously I'm gonna have to reconsider my participation with this group. If I want to do it or don't want to do it. As you know, if you go over to Patterson, by the gas station there, I have signage up with communication mechanisms. I paid for it out of my own pocket over all the years for the post office box, for the phone number that's my own. So I leave it to the rest of you, social fire safety councils, to decide to what level you do want to participate. But certainly, I'm ready to approve this when the motion's made in its entirety. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Alice, and then I'll go to Ernie.
I'm sure some of the other party members might be having trouble with missing resolutions. That there's no way for people in a, we're unhappy with the fire safety council to change leadership. And so, suppose that should be missed.
That's in our bylaws that we're supposed to adopt.
Let me go with Bruce. Bruce, Bruce, can you turn the mic on? There you go.
Thank you.
Hi, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Bruce Dixon. I'm now a member of the Rancho del Sol Fire Safety Council, but there was a day in the past when I sat with Pat on this council. And one of the things we always talked about was that in order for an organization to have a life, we can't depend upon just a couple of people. Well, Pat and I learned that on the hard way. And as a result, you now have all these fine people sitting on this council because we decided to stir the pot a little bit and get some people involved so that this organization could grow and keep up with the needs that were going on in the community. My point in bringing this up is that if that's exactly why they're now considering making these changes, because we have seen multiple circumstances in associate fire safety councils where, due to a lack of recruitment and involvement, council gets run by one or two people who eventually burn out. And that effort dies in the community, and the community suffers as a result. So I can't stress enough how important it is that you guys made this bylaw change so that people can be held accountable by their community to keep their fire safety council going. Thank you.
Thank you. I got Ernie on the radar. Let me, Karen has, I think, a clarification.
Thank you. So hopefully this will help Alice. In the county fire safety bylaws, it talks about the election. And we are, as associate councils, at the bare minimum to adopt those bylaws. And then we are also allowed to, on top of that, create our own bylaws that govern our associate fire safety councils. So at the minimum, you have to adopt the county bylaws if you're an associate council. And then you can also create your own bylaws that talk to how you govern your existing associate council. And then one other thing that I just wanted to mention quickly, and it's not nearly as important, but the mission statement it talked about, it says that you have to adopt the mission statement. Some of us aren't as creative. And so we adopt the county's mission statement with our name on it. So we just say, for instance, Mosquito Fire Safe Council, this is our mission statement, which is the same as the county's. Because again, we aren't as creative.
Is that not covered in the change?
It is, but you didn't mention. You didn't
Okay.
mention it.
I apologize.
That's okay.
Oh, yes, you're right. Sorry. Yes. C. Yeah, C for those that adopt a separate mission statement or adopt the language in the El Dorado County Fire Safe Council mission statement using the Associate Fire Safe Council names. Yes, thank you, Karen. I apologize. But I want to make sure going back and clarifying for Alice, and Karen's right, it's, the election process is required. But I think there's the specific question you're asking is, as a minimum, that the meeting where offices are elected should be public. I mean, is that a clarification that you want in that piece? We purposely kind of left that out of here, knowing it was covered other places, but. Okay. Thank you. Chris. Earnings.
So I had some words. Where it says maintaining a governing structure with a minimum of 3 persons. So the words that I added, and I asked Allison, was maintaining a governing structure, including elections. I just added the words including elections with a minimum of 3.
I believe it's covered though in other sections of the bylaws where they're required to have elections.
Which would tie them down to, is it the one where it says something about bylaws that you have to follow there? D, adopt the EDC.
Correct. Correct.
Do you think it's it?
Yeah, it's already covered. It's required to have an election process, and that's what's identified in the bylaws in other sections under elections.
Okay, and would that also mean that some of these A, B, C, D, E, F, that also may be in the bylaws, that it's just being restated because for emphasis?
I don't know, Chris. Honestly, I don't know.
So. Motion.
Well, so take those as comments, but I want to capture a few more comments before we put a motion forward. I'll have Ernie and I have Angel. Ernie's been trying several times.
Quick, just my clarification possibly for B. When you say public meetings, that includes both in person as well as Zoom.
Yes, public meeting will either be accessible by the public. Angel.
Hi, Angel Balls, Strawberry Fives Council. I would like clarification on what constitutes public meeting. And what I want clarification on so far this year, for example, I have had a timber harvest plan public meeting. I've had a community meeting and fire supplies meeting. So are all those public meetings? And does that meet the commitment, or is there some sort of a fine point where we get a treasury report, secretary report, grant report? Is that public meeting that you're looking for, or is it really all of those things?
I think it was purposely left vague so that it wasn't so prescriptive that it tied your hands to the types of meetings. And I'll turn it back over to Karen, but what we're really trying to, I think, get to here is that all of those meetings you just described, there's an opportunity for people in the community to participate and engage and see what their council's doing and provide comment.
Perfect, that's what I was hoping for.
Well done.
Okay, it'll come to me.
Karen had.
I agree with what Ken said, but also be prepared to answer questions if they have questions, because it is a community open meeting. So be prepared to answer if they have a treasurer's question or something to that effect. But, stick by your agenda. Always, it's an open meeting if you have an agenda and you publish it and you take minutes. Those are just what you have to do.
And again, I know this is a bit gray, but we've tried not to prescript this so much that it makes it difficult these are very grassroots kinds of meetings. We want people to feel comfortable coming. We didn't put the kinds of public notice. I mean, I think everybody knows what works in their community. And we just want to make sure folks have done their due diligence to encourage people to attend.
This is the climate. And so for me, I really do try and do 4 meetings. Does it mean? That's just a question to the group. Honestly, It was just my personality. But if there's a complaint about strawberry, I tell people rather than to yourself, come to me, I'm open to. I'm not super supportive of criticism, but
I'm with you. Well, just so you know that one, the complaint wasn't about strawberry, and two, the council went to both of, there were particularly two councils that were an issue, and the councils tried to work with both, so and to work through this. So, David.
I guess you answered my question then. 'Cause, yeah, it's a flat. I want to know.
Yes, and one's been resolved, the other hasn't, and I think that they know who they are. So, oh, yes, okay, Karen has a follow-up.
Try and get it resolved with, whoops. It's always better if they go to their representative from their fire safe council and try and work it out instead of bringing all the politics everywhere else. So we do encourage you to, try to go to your representatives and make it work.
Okay, with that, not seeing any more, Pat.
Just a quick comment. One of the beauties of being a nonprofit, not a government agency, is we are not required to follow the Brown Act, which has very specific requirements for posting agendas and distributing material. I think most of us try to follow in the spirit of that,
Right.
but we're not required by law.
No, and thank you for that, Pat. Again, that was sort of the spirit of what we were hoping. Paul.
So what we're seeing here is just the evolution of the organization. Which, from a nascent organization that, I think we saw with the grants where we're just trying to get a bit more organized. And this is what happens to many organizations. We're a bit more loose. We saw some issues. We're just trying to tighten it up and make ourselves more efficient as we mature as an organization, as a community. And I think this is just an example of some of the things we're doing.
Thank you.
Make the motion to adopt the bylaws.
Well, I was going to put that out there. If we could get a motion, so here we have a motion from David, a second from Chris. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of supporting the motion as presented on the screen and in the board packet, signify by saying aye. Any opposition? Okay. The bylaws are updated, resolution passes as presented. Thank you all. And again, in the spirit of all, yes, thank you. Open communication, and we tried everything we could do to figure out how to help these communities get there. And we were at a loss from the council's perspective as to how to help make a difference there. And so hopefully this will help be a nudge to keep that going. Okay, so moving things along, we have no old business today, and I want to focus on 8A. I don't have any additional information items. I've certainly said enough. Hugh, anything from the vice chair's report?
I made a heck of a mistake. No. No, just quickly, I continue to go to all the meetings I go to, but a couple things. First of all, I would like to announce that for the month of July, this last month of July, the fire safe councils that in our county conducted, at least that we have record of, 89 assessments for the month of July. Also, I would like to just let you know that there are some more of our workbooks in the back. I also have a box of them in my truck for anyone that needs a bunch of them. And I checked this morning, and after that, we have 10 boxes left. And I already have people talking to me. I'm looking at probably 300 to 400 to 500 of those that somebody is going to want down the road, but they're not, don't misunderstand that. They're not on hold for them, but they're just people talking to me thinking they're going to want some. So if you're interested in any more, just let me know. I'll make sure you get them.
Thank you. And again, that's a very popular document. 8C Secretary's report, Karen.
The only thing that I have is I want to thank the associate councils, all of them, for getting back to me with their changes on their officer contact information. I think I made all of the changes. But again, at any time throughout the year, if you have a change on your board, you can send that information to me. It's extremely important that Janet has the treasurer information and that we have at least three board members shown. So thank you to everyone for doing that.
Great, thank you, Karen. Treasurer's report, Janet.
Good morning, everybody. If you had an opportunity to look at the monthly project report, you'll see that it is in a reformatted format, rather than being a by grantor type of document. We reformatted it to be by type of project. So you will see that at the top of it is all of the fuels treatment projects, which includes all of our Stevens Authority and our most of our CAL FIRE grants, followed by a section on defensible space funding, which includes SMUD, PG&E, Title III money that we have committed to defensible space, and money from the El Dorado County Foundation Women's Fund and seniors and veterans. Followed by a section on chipping, which also has some Stevens Authority money. The AQMD chipping grant is there, and the CAL FIRE chipping grant is there. And then miscellaneous grants at the bottom that we're using for Green Waste Days, council funding, etc. So hopefully you will find this to be a little more user-friendly in looking at what money we have and what it's dedicated to. So if anybody has any questions on that, you can reach out to me, drop me a note by email, and I'll be happy to answer it. Last month, when we're talking about how much we're doing as a fire safe council, we issued checks totaling $126,874. So of that, only 7,000 was to run this fire safe council. The rest of that is in grants and other activities to support the communities that we support through chipping and defensible space and other work that we do. So we are doing a lot for our community, and I think we should all be proud of that. Any questions on the treasurer's report?
Okay, seeing no questions for Janet. For the board, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favor of approving the treasurer's report as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, treasurer's report approved. Okay, moving to 9 program reports. I know you hear lots from Tamara today, but I'll have her start off with grant and funding and grant committee report.
Oh, sorry.
Tamara Johnston, Georgetown Divide Fire Safety. Grants person, grant manager. So not activity July. Where these reports were due, so getting up to speed on doing all those, submitting all those reports, and we're still waiting to hear about the California Fire State Council Defensible Space Grant. We have a grant out for $500,000. We're very hopeful we're going to get that. We should know very soon. So, and then I just encourage everybody to attend the workshop this afternoon. Just to kind of clarify, it's not specifically about the grant process, it's about what happens after you get the grant. The whole idea is to know what you're getting yourself into, know what these projects entail, so that when you're planning the projects, you actually know what you're planning for. So 12:30, Mark and I will be doing that. We have 2 hours, hopefully it won't take that long, but lots of time for interaction.
Awesome. Thank you, Tamara. Any questions for Tamara? Right. Stay tuned for this afternoon. Okay, then we'll just briefly roll up the chipping program, defensible space and hazard. Oh, I'm sorry.
And we will also be recording it. So if you can't attend, we'll put out the recording.
Thanks, Ava.
Thank you. All right, hazard tree removal, great. Chipping and defensible space update from Jessica.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jessica. And let's see, so for the month of July,
For chipping. We did 89 jobs, which came out to be about $34,000. The average job cost. Oh, I don't do that for chipping, that's for defensible space. We also completed, or were in the process of completing 2 community events. We have a chipper currently out there in Strawberry, and we just completed Wrights Lake, Dark Lake yesterday, and it's going very good. Yeah. I think we had a total of 34 applications between both communities. For defensible space, we're moving along for defensible space. Last month, we processed 170 jobs in different stages. 43 were completed, 9 were closed, 77 are awaiting being contracted, 3 are awaiting evaluations, 38 are awaiting to be assigned to an evaluator, which they've been assigned now. Last month, we spent a little over 40 grand. The average job cost per property was $940.61. We completed 58 evaluations, which was $5,800, which puts us at a total of $119,135.70 that we've spent total for defensible space for the year so far. If anybody has any questions, feel free to talk to me after the meeting for that. And in terms of hazardous tree, right now I don't have numbers. We're having access issues with me getting into their system to pull reports. It's pulling reports for all their data. So it's over 80,000 jobs that they're working with. So I am having a hard time figuring out how to separate our data from their data. Once we get ahead of that, I know last month, they had only established, I think about 40 trees to be removed. I know that right now they're about to put out the RFP for contracting on Monday. And so hopefully we can start getting trees actually removed within the next couple weeks. I will try to get the data locked down for next meeting.
Good. Any questions for Jessica? All right, there's definitely been quite a big bubble in the program, particularly defensible space, over the last couple of months in a good way. David.
So Jessica, I'm sorry. First of all, it's going great, thank you. But I'm confused. When does someone get paid to do an evaluation, and what about our volunteer assessors? I'm not sure of the distinction.
For defensible space?
Yeah.
What Hugh is doing is separate from our assistance program. Is that what you're asking?
Probably.
Okay. Yes, what Hugh is doing is definitely separated from our assistance program. Our assistance program is when they apply online, and we have our own certified evaluators that go out and do assessments, and they get paid upon completion of assessment. Then I review them, I approve them, I task them out to a contractor. The contractor doesn't get paid until the work is completed.
Okay, and Hugh's program is volunteer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, David. Okay. Thank you. That's looking around, not seeing other questions. Great. Thank you, Jessica. Outreach and education, Alice.
I'm sorry.
Hello. I just don't know then if you are having an event with your fire council and it's out to works, we have a ton of little games you can have. And they address evacuation for case of hardening. So, just let me know if you want to borrow those. In general, we have a lot of stuff that's being borrowed. I really appreciate it. Returning it nicely and signing out nicely. Thank you. If you've never borrowed anything, let me know and I'll meet you there and I'll show you all the stuff that's there, because people are very surprised at how much is there they can borrow. And the other thing lastly was just, because of the games, I'm just kind of throwing something about, I'm thinking about doing another countywide event next year, which is Kids Expo. So if you like kids and that's something you want to do, maybe we'll do that. Kids Expo. Last thing is the Little Fire Flash. If you have an article or a subject you'd like to have coverage, I always open. Thank you.
Alice? Yeah, are you still planning to do your deck thing next,
Yes, thank you,
next meeting?
Commissioner.
Okay.
So, Tamara's doing the one today, but then next month after our county fire safety council, it was originally kind of started as kind of a continuing education to go a little deeper into decks and events in particular for people who've gone through the assessments, but it's also open to anybody who's interested in learning real details on things you can help homeowners with making the decks and events. I'm sorry, that's the next meeting, and I would like to make it a 1. There's some confusion over the 12:30 to 1, so I think next time we will do it at 1, so there's a break in this meeting.
Thank you. Governance and new council formation. Anything? Okay, perfect. Nothing from Karen on that. Okay, item 10, community council reports. Anything for the good of the order from individual councils? Chris.
If you could post the password or the Wi-Fi for this room. I don't have a hotspot, so I can't get into the information by going browsing it. So is that gonna be a problem, or?
We'll check with Diamond Springs. Not sure if it's public.
The other thing, I spoke about this House of Natural Resources here. Ken, you got information on it. I just thought it was important to recognize that statewide national link in Yosemite. I don't know that you went or if you knew of people who had gone, but I understand it was the House Natural Resources Committee hearing, and people spoke there. And it was in Yosemite last weekend.
Yeah, no, I didn't know anything about it. I heard about it, but I didn't.
Yeah, it's been posted on Facebook, so we can, you guys go in and maybe you can find that hearing. I thought it was very interesting. Supervisor Turnbull, District 2, spoke at it as a speaker. So he has his website with that information too. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Chris. Any other update reports? Janet.
Janet Berenson, Occam Fair Play. Today is a new event in our area put on by the Community Hub Project, which is providing services to communities. And so they are currently, as we speak, out at the Pioneer Park Community Center, providing information on library cards and fingerprinting and screening for kids, and job development opportunities and food assistance for low-income folks, and home energy and water assistance through the HEAP program, door-to-door homeless services. And Occam Fair Play is participating today by providing the workbook. Among other things, folks can sign up for defensible space inspections and also sign up to receive address signs if they so choose. But this is the first event that they've held, at least out in our area, and so we are participating with them today. Tonight is our regular monthly Fire Safe Council meeting, and we're having the Pioneer Fire Chief come and discuss the Ron Tree fire that occurred in our area. So that'll be a good informational event for folks in our community.
Others? Okay. Oh, cool. Okay, we'll go Michael, then we'll go. Does
That's fine.
that work? Okay.
That worked for me.
And I'm Mike Conway with the Alcoholic Sales Fire City Council. Honorable Curtis Fire State Council. We run a community complimentary chipping program. And we've been running it for about 15 years and do about 700 chipping operations a year. And our chippers were right now. We applied grant Cal Fire and we were favored with an award. So,
All right.
we also started work on fuel reduction project on our campground on the southern border. And we are working with the Bureau of Reclamation on plans for fuel reduction activities on their land that borders us next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Karen, mosquito.
So Mosquito Fire State Council on August 6th, we had a presentation given to us by CIRA, the Community Emergency Radio Association. Bob, Pat, and Alan were there. We had board members and we had a lot of key community members who came to it. It was very successful, very informative. So I appreciated them coming and taking the time to talk to us. We are also having our first of a series of neighborhood block party on the 26th of August. There's some little flyers in the back there. And the biggest part of it is for our neighbors to get together because being neighborly is part of your wildfire preparedness plan. And with that, OES, Office of Emergency Services, is coming to talk to us about evacuation. Sarah will be there. We have someone from CAL FIRE and the outreach, El Dorado County Outreach, coming to speak to us as well. So I have a lot of eyes on us for this very first block party. So trying to see how it goes and report back. And then there was only one other thing I wanted to say quickly. Recently we went to the OES Community Wild Season meeting, and what a incredible informative meeting that was. I'm always very proud to say I'm part of El Dorado County Fire Safe Council, especially when Ken was speaking to and representing El Dorado County Fire Safe Council and the OWOPR group. But between OES, the Forest Service, CAL FIRE, even I think the Placerville Police Chief was there. What a huge testament to working together and collaboration. It was, in my opinion, just such a great meeting, and I wish, I hope it continues every year and that more and more people come to it because it was very informative from all of the partners. So thank you for that. If anyone's here that was part of that, it was great. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Doug. No, can you speak up, Doug, for the room? Yeah.
Full attention, almost 2 hours. We kept like, when are we gonna cut it off? If it was fully engaged, ready for me. So the other thing is we were trying to get other cabin tracks in the forest. Kind of organized and involved, and we invited them all. But we did get the president, vice president. Or the Sierra Homeowners Association represents all those guys. To come to our event, like this, and then we had a great shipping the last few days. Shipping coalition for a while. So we really appreciate all the resources we have.
Thank you, Doug. Anything else? We'll go with Bob and then we'll come back to you.
Yeah, I'll make it quick. Just thanks again to Mark and Holly and Ruth over at RCD, Coloma Lotus Fire Safety Council, Bob, yes, by the way. And we're still working on our ROEs. They're trickling in. And we're gearing for 100%. We're knocking on doors, doing everything we can. Maybe we could teach that class at some point. If we ever do.
You're hired. Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, Hugh Council, Texas Hill, Fire Safe Council. I don't usually report much, but this last Saturday, Texas Hill did have a community meeting downtown at Town Hall. And we had a meeting regarding the defensible space inspections that are coming to Texas Hill. We had over 45 people there. That's the most we've ever had at a meeting. But at the same time, I just want to give a shout out for El Dorado Hills, because, well, first Krishana came and talked to everybody about what the inspections were going to be and all that. But they brought their sand table and we set their sand table up and modeled. We actually burnt Texas Hill. And the interesting part about that was on Saturday. Monday, I had 12 requests for assessment.
Here's where it's motivated.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Greenstone.
That Firewise USA. And I really appreciate the fact that you changing the bylaws to get. I was actually appointed in Greenstone to do this job, so it wasn't a vote. Anyway, Firewise USA, actually, people are getting discounts by providing that certification, or I have to say it's a not a certification, it's designation. And anyway, but it is working for people in our community, and they've been very grateful. They're getting 5% off. Somebody said they got 25% off.
Wow.
I would like to see the actual result of that, but I'm not too sure. But people have been getting more engaged because we get out information. We do have monthly meetings, and people are invited to come if they want to in our community. So anyway, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? I'm sure I don't miss anyone. Okay, with that, any public comment before we close out? Oh, okay. Angel.
Angel Ball, Strawberry Fire Safe Council. I met Mark a little bit after Haldor Fire when he came to our community. And I never really realized what an important asset that Mark and his team is to El Dorado County. And I watched the most informative presentation that I would encourage everyone to watch. It was at Board of Supervisors meeting on July 25th at about 10:15. It lasts about a half an hour. It's well worth watching it during your lunch hour, right before you want to go to bed or getting. See county, all the projects. Just wanted to share that information in case anybody else wants to. Thank you.
Well said, Angel. Thank you. Okay, any That's enough for Mark, though. He'll get a swelled head. Won't show up. He won't show up for this afternoon, so we have to be careful. No. Okay, any other public comment? Chris?
Before the meeting, I talked to David about the SOFAR biomass working group. So I have a date and time. It's the 24th of August at 11 a.m. For those of you that will participate, contact David and he can give you more details. That soon he will not be able to Zoom. It's on that date. So hopefully I'll be able to do that. So that was one thing, Ken. The other thing is you heard earlier, Ken spoke about August the 29th for the supervisors meeting. That's public of when Mark Egbert just did his presentation. I wish more people would have been there. You know, the room should have been packed, but they weren't. So please come on August the 29th. I'll put that on your calendar. It'll be posted on the Board of Supervisors agenda probably within the next couple of weeks. For that date. It's usually a Wednesday before the Tuesday. So if it's the 29th, it'll just back it up. And then by Friday, any addendums are get published by 5 o'clock on Friday before the Tuesday. And then again, we just had a tragedy in Hawaii. And I thought it might be important as we adjourn that we speak to all the people that were lost. And I know maybe you had friends possibly over there or not, but some of us did. And so I thought it was important to recognize what has happened in that community. So thank you for the time.
No, good sentiment, Chris, and thank you for that. And we will close out on that. Our next meeting is September 20th. I commit to everybody that will have stakeholders and project reports back on the agenda for September. And yes, as we conclude today, the thoughts are with everybody in Maui, not only the residents, but all of the folks that are rushing there to take care of them, but also recognizing wildfire right now is a problem across the globe. If you just look at Colombia, Europe, it's not discriminating right now. So we need to be thinking about everybody, and the business we're in is making a difference here locally, and it's a national or international issue. So thank you. With that, we're adjourned. Look forward to seeing others at 12:30. Thank you.
Morning.
Hey.